cannabis and alcohol were readily available, and they were my go-to because I didn't have to think of what was happening at home and what was happening with her, because I didn't want to kill myself because my sister already had. I didn't want to do it to my family, so I was just trying to eat, drink and drug myself to death. Methamphetamine certainly changed that for me. I was just powerless over it from day dot. I can still remember the very first use. Within about 18 months I'd been arrested in an undercover operation. I still remember now the detective sitting me outside the motel room, and he said to me, "Why don't you just stop?" And I said, "I wish I knew how." I felt like I was a piece of a jigsaw puzzle all my life, and wherever I turned that puzzle, it was the last piece of a puzzle and it never fitted. I remember walking into that treatment program, and I feel like that day I turned the piece and it just fell into place.
My name is Nicole Young, and this is the Rock Your Bottom podcast. Hi guys, just a quick PSA. I just wanted to jump on and say a massive thank you so far for all of the love and the support. Please, if you are enjoying the content, make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. Yes, I'm talking to you. To keep this going, it needs your support. If the love keeps coming, I promise to keep bringing some incredible stories to your screens. I hope you enjoy this next episode. Mitch Ingram, welcome to the Rock Your Bottom podcast, my friend. I am so pumped to have you sitting opposite me this morning, and I cannot thank you enough because I understand you are one busy bee and you are out there doing it all, and yeah, thank you.
Lovely to be here.
How are you feeling?
Great.
Yeah.
When I talk recovery, I'm always excited. You know, every day's a great day in recovery.
Awesome. Tell me, are you from Auckland?
I am indeed, born and bred. I was born in the Mater Hotel and Mater Hospital, which is now, I believe it's a Southern Cross Hospital in Newmarket in 1969. So I'm 55 years old, and I've lived in Auckland, apart from a couple of stints overseas in Australia. I've lived in Auckland all my life and live just down the road.
Awesome. And what do you do today?
I'm a sales manager for a large corporate building supply business. I've been there 9 years now, coming up 9 years. I'm a builder by trade, so yeah, swinging a hammer, banging nails, and then progressed into sales in 2003, and I've been there ever since, and just love it.
Incredible. You're sitting in front of me today to share your story from active addiction into recovery and how that journey was for you, and which is pretty remarkable, you know. To kick off this episode, one of the things that I really, really enjoy doing with my guests that come on is for them to share their all-time favorite quote or saying that they have found in recovery that has helped them. Do you have one on the top of your head this morning?
Yeah, my favourite is no one's promised tomorrow, so just enjoy today. And this is a daily program, so I think it's apt that, you know, sometimes we look to the future too far and not worry about today. So,
yeah. Is there any more?
Yeah, off the top of my head is you know, do something to help others without wanting anything in return. You know, and it's a beautiful thing to help somebody and not want anything. Yeah. There's too many people are always, well, what's in it for me? And the feeling of giving back is paramount.
Yeah. Amazing. So, you know, I would actually just love for you to explain to me, you know, your experience through mental health and addiction and where it all started for you.
Yeah, I suppose I didn't even know it started for me, but growing up in East Auckland, I had my sister was 3 years older than me, and from a very young age, there was issues around her having mental health problems. So this is back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, and mental health wasn't really understood back then. It was treated as a crime. So when she started going into sort of showing signs of mental health, the police would be called. So the police would come to our house regularly, and seeing her as a young 12, 13, 14-year-old girl being handcuffed and put in the back of a car. It was really difficult to understand. I was only, 9, 10, 11, and it definitely had an effect on the family. Her mental health grew over the years, and it ended up putting too much pressure on my parents, and they ended up divorcing. So I had to make a choice. Who am I going to go and live with? I was still in college, and it was, it wasn't that easy to understand why. I always felt like she was doing it on purpose. I didn't understand the mental health side of it. What I found was I turned very quickly to alcohol at a young age. The group of people I was, hanging out with quickly led to cannabis. As a young 14-year-old boy, cannabis and alcohol were readily available, and they were my go-to because I didn't have to. I didn't have to think of what was happening at home and what was happening with her, because there would always be arguments between my mum and my dad about her, who she's going to live with, what facility she's in. Really hard to keep people in facilities and mental health back in those days. You needed 2 or 3 doctors to sign off it. And back in those days, you only ever had one doctor. So a doctor wouldn't sign off on holding someone in a secure unit if they didn't know you. So, she would always be out. And when she was out, she was always causing mayhem. And I just didn't want to go home. So I stayed out, and virtually from a very early age, I learnt that substance could make me forget, and that just trucked through all the way. That was the start of it for me. From the very early 13 was when I started, alcohol and cannabis, and as I grew older, it just progressed into harder drugs and avoiding family. And when you do that, it's I look back and it's not a great way to start a life, is avoiding your family and that secure unit. So I progressed through to, I got a job as an apprentice builder, and unfortunately that was all around alcohol. The building industry it was alcohol. There was a floor shout, there was a framing shout, there's a roof shout, there's a cladding shout, there's a, you name it, there's a shout.
Yep.
So alcohol and building went hand in hand, which was great for me. I started playing cue sports. I started playing 8-ball and snooker, and that was yet again, there was another avenue for, it was all played in bars, it was all played in pubs. So for me, I just found this wonderful niche with alcohol, and with alcohol become drugs, and I suppose I was a functioning addict because nothing really was untoward. I had a very good career in cue sports. I represented New Zealand for many years and won a lot of New Zealand titles, and at 23, I was fortunate enough to be New Zealand captain, and everything was going well. Going through my 20s, I carried on drinking and using drugs, and everything was pretty much, as far as I was concerned, life was good. I got married. I had a couple of kids. My sister's mental health had got worse every year, and it was taking a toll on her and her family, and she'd been through a couple of divorces, and she had kids, and they were struggling. And then one night I came home from work, and my wife at the time was in tears, and it was because of my sister. She'd been on the phone abusing her, and my sister was up the road at my dad's house living there because she'd separated from her husband. And I went up and had words with her, and our words ended up as a bit of a physical fight, and she hit me and I hit her, and I threw her on the ground, and then I left, and a few hours later they rang and said she was dead. She'd taken her life. I was 33.
What impact did that have on you, Mitch?
It was traumatising. It was the only people that knew about our fight was me and her. So the way I looked at it was, well, I can keep the secret. So can she. She can't tell anyone, so I'm not going to tell anyone. I remember it vividly because it was the night after my wife's birthday. So my ex-wife's birthday, my wife at that stage, and that was a Thursday night, and I went back up to the house to the ambulance was there, the coroner was there, the police were there, and I went in to say goodbye to her, and it was pretty hard. It was pretty hard to see, someone. I probably had lost the love for her at that stage because of what she'd done to our family. I blamed her for splitting our family, and so the next day I was drowning my sorrows in alcohol and drugs, and I got a phone call to say one of my best friends had just gassed himself in his car. And that was, I was already numb to the point of not wanting to feel, and then that Friday, with friend passing, just put another layer on top. So I was getting over that, and then on Sunday I got a phone call to say my friend died on a motorbike crash out in Maraetai. So I had 3 people, very close to me, in 3 days die. The following week I went to 3 funerals, carried caskets. Problem being is, in New Zealand, males are supposed to be these, tough exterior. So I didn't shed one tear at any of the funerals, and looking back now, that was the worst thing that could have happened, because I just suppressed all of my emotions at that level, and what I learned was over the next 10 years, that suppressing those emotions just ate me alive. It was eating me from the inside out. The fight with my sister was, I wanted to tell people, but I was too scared to, in case they thought I was a reason, that they could blame me. So looking back, she had threatened suicide. There was 150 suicide notes in her room. It just happened to be the one night that we had a fight that she passed away, and the reality was I still blame myself.
How long did you hold on to that for?
Till I was 44, when I'd managed to ruin my marriage. I had 2 young girls. My wife at that time had enough. My drug use escalated. It went from, I used to have a saying that I use drugs don't use me. That was up until she passed away. After that, the drugs used me. I didn't use drugs. They got me hook, line and sinker. I started using methamphetamine, and that was the drug that just changed everything for me. I had no power to say no to it, and it consumed every minute of my thinking.
How were you introduced to methamphetamine?
Just through friends, just through connections. A lot of the guys I grew up with were in the criminal scene and the gang scene, so it wasn't really unnatural for me to see drugs of any type. But methamphetamine certainly changed that for me. I was just powerless over it from day dot. I can still remember the very first use. Back in those days, it was light bulb, no, the old dirty old light bulbs, and it was, I didn't even know what I was doing, but I know the feeling I got was of euphoria to start with, and then the euphoria quickly went away and was replaced with just the need to use.
Talk me through where your addiction ended up taking you.
Yeah, it took me to the gutter. To be fair, I 2010, I was been married for 10 years, and my ex-wife just said, I can't do it anymore. You need to choose between your drugs and your kids. So I packed up my stuff and I left. And what I didn't realise at that point was, in that house I was living in with her was like a moat. I was protected in that house. As soon as I got out, I was in amongst the sharks. And I quickly went downhill to the point of the only way I could survive was to sell. So I started dealing meth. And within about 18 months, I'd been arrested in an undercover operation by Dunedin CIB, ironically.
Wow.
I was supplying some meth to the lower South Island through an acquaintance. And I got arrested in Auckland by Dunedin CIB. And looking back, I still remember now the detective sitting me outside the motel room, and he said to me, "Why don't you just stop?" And I said, "I wish I knew how." And he goes, "Well, maybe this will be the catalyst to stop you." Well, jump forward to come back. Not too many years back, I wrote him a letter to say thanks, that it probably was the catalyst, and I stopped, and I'm now ex-man. I never heard back. I didn't expect to hear back from him, but I got his email address through my old lawyer. So it was a nice thing for me to do to make amends. And I said, "I bet you don't get many of these emails or letters," but I said, "I appreciate you arresting me that day," because I didn't get clean straight away. I actually, all the way through till I went to court, which was about 14 months, I used up until I decided that treatment was required. So
when you decided treatment was required, was that sort of, a thing to tick boxes at that stage for you, or did you sort of know that this was really needed?
I didn't even know what treatment was, to be fair. I had no idea. I'd always been, rehabs for quitters, and I'm not a quitter, So that was how defiant I was of everything, and Mitchell was always right. No, I got to a point where I couldn't even be in my bedroom with the door shut at night time without getting anxiety if I didn't have enough meth, right? So I could just picture, I knew I was going to jail. The reality was the charges I had were all, I remember ringing up Odyssey and asking them if they could get a bed, and they asked for my charges, and they said, "Oh no, we can't take you. Your charges are indictable." And I'm like, "Oh, I might have got myself in too deep here." So the reality was, it started to dawn on me that I was going to jail. So I talked to my lawyer, and she said, "Look, there's zero chance you're not going to jail." So I thought, I can't I didn't know what jail was like. I had no idea. I'd never been. I'd never been arrested. This was my first arrest. So I thought, if I can't sit in my bedroom with the door closed at night, and I've got the choice to open it and walk out, what am I going to be like in a jail cell? So I was like, I need to do something about this. I need to get clean. I need to sort out this anxiety. So that was where I decided maybe I need to find somewhere. And I had this wonderful story. I didn't know where to look. I had no idea. I was on bail. I was on curfew. I was at my dad's house. I had no car, and I had some reporting conditions every second day. It was painful. But I remember ringing the Citizens Advice Bureau, and I got this lovely lady, and I told her my story, and she goes, "Oh, my grandson's just finished a treatment program." And I was like, it was like a higher power moment without even knowing what a higher power moment was. But she told me who to ring, and I made a phone call to the Salvation Army Bridge program in Mount Eden, and I had an assessment a couple of days later, and I did a couple of stage ones with them, and they offered me a bed about 3 weeks later.
Wow.
So that was, I rolled in the door there on June the 7th, 2014. So nearly 11 years ago now. Didn't have a clue what I was. I actually lied to them from my very first. They said, all you got to do is be honest. I said, okay, cool. And they said, when did you use last? I said, 3 weeks ago. They did a drug test. They went, liar. And I went, yep, you're right. It was Friday. So the reality was, I learned quickly that lying in those places wasn't a good option.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was a piece of a jigsaw puzzle all my life. And wherever I turned that puzzle, it was the last piece of a puzzle, and it never fitted. I remember walking into that treatment program, and I feel like that day I turned the piece and it just fell into place. I felt like that was the last piece of the puzzle I was looking for. I finally found where I needed to be, because the people I was with, they were all the same as me. I finally felt, because I was holding down a job for so long with people that none of them knew I was using. I had to use to survive. They weren't. I never felt like I fitted. I didn't fit at home. I didn't fit any. The only place I fitted was with a bunch of alcoholics and addicts, and I was happy to be there. People used to say to me, "Why are you smiling?" And the reality was, I was happy. I'd finally found somewhere that I didn't have to lie. So that was the start of my journey.
Looking back to the time that you were stuck in, your active addiction, was there a specific rock bottom moment for you that took place that you believed, was the pillar of, your turning point?
Yeah, it was definitely the arrest.
Yeah.
It was definitely the shame and the ripple effect of my arrest, because I was quite a high-profile person in the area I grew up. The club I played pool for, my dad drank there and still does. So everybody knew me. So the news of me getting arrested had a detrimental effect on him. And I really hated that my actions caused so much negativity for those closest to me. I remember my lawyer ringing my ex-wife and accusing her of being involved in my drug dealing. And my ex-wife had nothing to do with it. She knew nothing about it. And she rang me, very upset. So, it was horrible that I'd reached a point where I was so selfish in my own need that I was affecting everyone that was around me. That my ex-wife had to lie to my children about where Dad was. Why is Dad not coming around? Why is he not picking us up? And I don't even know how she got to the point to tell them that I was in jail. So that was the bottom for me. When I was on bail and at Dad's place, and the police would come around at 3 a.m. and bang on the front door, and it was ruining his life. My action was ruining his day-to-day living.
Yeah.
That was the bottom for me. I was quite happy to plead guilty and go to jail because I didn't want to hurt anyone anymore. So that was definitely on one hand, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. The other hand, it was it showed me that you can one person uses, everyone else is affected.
Yeah.
So
as I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you, I'm adding the dots, and you went to the bridge program and then you went into prison after completing?
No, I did. I finished the 8 weeks at the bridge program, and they handed me a certificate and they said, congratulations.
Yeah.
And I felt worse than I did 8 weeks prior because I'd been using so much. Like while I was in the bridge, I had 3 trips to hospital by ambulance. I had 3 seizures.
Oh, wow.
I was virtually paralysed down the side of my face.
Is this from your methamphetamine?
Yeah, from the withdrawal. Yeah, it was. I was, because it was virtually just cold turkey, and I was quite a lot larger. I was over 200 kilos at that stage, so I was really, because I was trying to eat, drink, drug myself to death.
Yeah,
that was my plan. If I'm unhealthy enough, I'll die. Because I didn't want to kill myself because my sister already had. I didn't want to do it to my family. So I was just trying to eat, drink, and drug myself to death. So when they gave me that certificate and they said, congratulations, you've passed, I was like, oh, God, I'm far from cured. I can't go home.
Yeah.
I'm on bail. So I was suggested to go to Wings Trust. So I didn't know what Wings Trust was. Ironically, it was just around the corner in Walters Road. And I went for an assessment there, and they took me in, and I thought that would be my last stop there. And I was put in a group under a counsellor there who is just the most amazing man in the world. And I was allowed to stay there for 4 months because I was classified as post-treatment. So I was allowed 4 months at Wings Trust, and it's a independent living. You live in a house with a bunch of guys. You do treatment in some class groups in the morning, and then in the afternoon you got it to yourself. And for the 4 months I was there, my case manager there, he said to me, he goes, oh, you need to go to higher ground. And I'd seen the people that had come to Wings post-treatment from higher ground. I was like, oh, no, the stories are higher ground.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I don't. So I spent 4 months telling him why I didn't need to go to higher ground.
Yeah.
He spent 4 months telling me why I needed to go to higher ground. So we had this, we built this amazing relationship where every day he'd be like, you ready to go? And I'd go, I don't need to go. Already done treatment.
Yeah.
And then closer to the end of my stay, we were going for a walk that morning, and he didn't say anything to me. Usually he'd started off every morning going to higher ground. This morning he didn't say anything. And I said to him, aren't you going to tell me to go to higher ground? He goes, no. And I said, why not? He goes, because you couldn't do it anyway. And he'd worked out that I was a very stubborn person. And I said to him, what do you mean I can't do it? He goes, you're not up for it. I said, I'm up for it. He goes, no, you're not. So it was a bit of reverse psychology on his behalf. And I said, well, sign me up then. He goes, you're going Monday. He'd already had it all planned out. He knew what I realised was I wasn't that smart.
Yeah.
And I realised that counsellors and AOD specialists, they can pick addicts' behaviour before you even know what you're doing. And now I look back on that and I'm like, I didn't realise how easy I was to read. Yeah. So he knew that he'd been playing this game, and anyway, he knew I was going to high ground. I didn't know I was going, but he knew. So that next Monday, it was the 1st of December, 2015, I rolled off to higher ground.
Wow, and what was that whole experience like for you?
It was the most traumatic thing I've ever done, I think. Nothing could have prepared me for that 18 weeks of enlightenment. I remember going to Disneyland as a kid, and there's a big sign in front of Disneyland saying the happiest place on earth. And I look back at high ground now, and I feel like it should say the best place on earth. Because I walked in a man-child. I was a man in looks and a child in behaviours. And I walked out a man. In 18 weeks, that place I can't speak high. I think everybody in this world should go and do a treatment at higher ground, addiction or no addiction, because you learn more about yourself in 18 weeks than I could have ever learned in the previous 44 years. I was able to deal with the trauma of my sister's death. I lost my mum 18 months after my sister as well. Very quickly, I talked to her on a Friday. Saturday, she was dead.
How did she pass away?
She had a stroke because my sister left 3 kids for her to look after. So she went from being a grandmother to a mother again at later on in life. She was trying to hold down a job, to hold down a mortgage. It was just too much, and she had a stroke and died. I also had trauma around her death because when she was passing away in the hospital at Middlemore, I decided to leave and go and use because I just didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to lie there seeing the most important person in my life. We turned the life support off. And also my stepfather was there, and he was just, he's not a great person, and I didn't want to be in the same room as him. I took myself out of there and went off and used to try and deal with it. And there was a lot of trauma with that I dealt with at high. I dealt with everything at higher ground. I had all these demons inside me that were my secrets, and we say in the fellowship that, secrets keep you sick. And that's exactly what my secrets have been doing. They've been making me ill. And when I dealt with them at higher ground, I was like, I realised that they were just my secrets. Nobody really cared. The only thing those secrets were affecting was me. So once I did the work around them, and I thought what was going to happen, I was going to walk into higher ground, they'd pull out a little magic wand, they'd tap me a couple of times on the shoulder, once on the head, and they'd go, "Done, you're cured, Mitch, off you go." But what it was 18 weeks of personal discovery. So the work they got me to do was around, they obviously knew what my trauma was, but they wanted me to find out and identify it and then work on it. And it was great. It was just, I met some of the most amazing people in higher ground. And it was the toughest, hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but it's also been the best thing I've ever done in my life. It's given me what I have today. If it wasn't for higher ground, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. And the people that work there, it's not an us against them mentality, even though they do their job, they do it well. What I've worked out is they're there saving your life. You don't realise it at the time. They test you on everybody. They test you from the time you get up in the morning to the time you go to bed. They test you, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. I just loved the structure. I'm very OCD, so it fitted right into my strike zone of getting up on time, having a shower. I didn't like all the rules. I'm a pushback on rules, but I do like structure, So I battled a lot, but I what I realised was that I'm just, because you're around all the other same people, I'm just normal in that environment. I'm not the odd one out. So it was cool. I met some really good people there, and I rolled out of there just a different person. You don't realise you're changing. Other people realise you're changing. But I didn't really, the hardest thing was I didn't have any support in there either. Like my ex-wife had cut me off. I remember my case manager saying, "I will get your ex-wife in here to tell her side." I said, "She won't come."
Yeah.
I said, "I've damaged that." He goes, "Oh, I'm very persuasive." I said, "And she's very set in her ways." Anyway, I asked him, "Did you get hold of her?" He goes, "Yeah, she's not coming." In fact, her words were, "I'm not going to come in there and stab him."
Yeah.
And do you know what? Rightly so. She shouldn't. I'd done too much damage. Right? She didn't believe that I was changing, so I had to prove that. So I spent 18 weeks there dealing with. What I learned was I loved my sister so much that I'd lost her years before she died. So I was just, protecting myself from not having to feel the loss of her, which is natural. Look, humans have defense mechanisms the same as animals in the wild. We protect ourselves from stuff that hurts us. So I was just doing what was normal. I just did it to a different level.
I'm intrigued to know what sort of work they put you through in there to come to this conclusion.
You do a lot of things called commitments. So commitments around sort of psychological work. So remember the first one I did was everything. I did a humour mask. So everything that we would talk about, I would turn into a joke to avoid having to take it seriously. So I did a humour mask, and I realised that I didn't even. They said you've got a humour mask, and I went, rubbish. Everything they said to me, you're wrong. You're wrong. You don't know me. I've only been here 3 weeks. These guys were professionals. I was an addict. A know-it-all addict. They used to call me the why man because they'd tell me to do something and I'd go, why? Yeah. Because I felt like I needed justification to do. If I agreed with it, then it was all good. But so the reality was they got me to do a humour mask, and I learned that I deflected all of my seriousness in my life so I didn't have to feel it into humour. Then I did a thing called the Cartman Triangle, and that was probably where I got my most learning. Cartman Triangle is a triangle of, let me try and remember, caretaker, victim, persecutor. And you flip into all three. You use each of those three people to get what you need. So you're virtually a manipulator. And then when you're not getting it that way, you turn into the victim and you go, poor me, And that was exactly me. Everything they got me to do was me. So I was learning about myself. I was virtually going back to like when I was an apprentice builder, learning how to build a house. Without knowing, you do 4 years of an apprenticeship, you don't realise you're learning on the day because you're enjoying it, but you're learning. And then at 4 years, you know how to build, but you never stop learning, you keep learning in the years to come. But that's what I did while I was there for 18 weeks. I learned about myself, about my behaviours, about what I was doing wrong, in life, and stop being such a selfish prick, really, and I had a most amazing case manager there that, that I connected with from day dot. I disliked every meeting with him, but the reality was because he was just so good at pointing out what I needed to work on. Tears, I've never shed so many tears, and the tears that I should have shed at those funerals, I would have done 1,000 times over at higher ground. But the reality was, I was so emotionless when I went in there that I'm now able to connect my heart to my head, to my brain, and I can feel emotion. I get, when I start talking about stuff, I get teared up regularly. Sometimes I can be driving along the car and I'll think of something and I'll get teared up. So, I sometimes think I wish I could go back to higher ground and do another stint. And I always said if I ever relapsed, I'd go back to higher ground because it scares me still.
I've said the same thing to myself as well.
A decade later, I go there to support. I go there to support guys regularly still, and I go there for graduations, and I go there and I share my story. And every time I say I love being here, I still walk up the driveway and get the same butterflies I had when I was here. I said, but the good thing is I know I'm leaving in about an hour, and they'll go away. I still get anxiety walking in that place because I respect it so much.
Yeah.
I love how over a decade later, the rules are still the same they were when I was there. So when guys are telling me, oh, this isn't fair and that's not fair, I'm like, well, they were fair for me when I was there, so why are they not? The reality is they can't, nothing. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Mm-hmm. So I just love everything about higher ground and what it stands for. And, if, failure, I always say to people, failures, if you don't get through higher ground, that's not failure. Failure is not going there in the first place. Because you will, no matter how long you're there, you will learn something.
What's the biggest thing you believe that you learned about yourself while you were in there? That the world doesn't revolve around Mitchell. I quickly realised that I can't survive by myself. I need people around me. I need good people around me. So to have good people around me, I need to be a good person. And that's what I try and be today. I try and be a good person. Do I get it right every day? Not every day. But the reality is these days I do get it. I do get it right. So most days. So but higher ground, there's so much I learned at higher ground. I could sit here for days and you'll understand. You've been there. Yeah. I just think that the respect that you of other people,
I heard some traumatic stories in there, and I realised that my story wasn't all that bad. I had a loving family. I had a roof over my head. I met people that had none of that, from a very young age. I had no, sexual trauma and that. And some of the people there had been traumatised all their life by those that were supposed to love them.
Yeah.
So the reality is, no matter how bad you think your story is, there's someone worse.
Yeah.
So let's not forget that, like my story, my story to me is important, but to others it's just my story, So they've got theirs. So remember, be respectful to them. And like I'd never had I'd never had a gay friend until I went to higher ground, and I'd never met a openly gay person, and it turned out that I ended up at like 3 of my closest friends at high ground were gay people, and it was like I'd changed so much that I was probably classified as a homophobic back in the day, but the reality was I just realised they're just great people.
Yeah.
Everyone's a great person. God bless my friend Paul, who I did treatment with, and he's passed away now, but he was the best person I'd ever met in my life, the funniest, gregarious, and I didn't even know he was gay until he told me.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey? Because I thought I could pick a gay, but I had no idea. He was my friend before he was gay, and the reality was that's when I quickly realised, stop being so judgmental, Mitchell. It makes no difference who they are. And today, everybody's just a human to me.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's massive. To change a person like myself, that you've got to want to change. You've got to be open to change. And I was. I just wanted. I hated the person I'd become, because my parents instilled great morals into me. Please, thank you, help someone else. But I'd lost all of that. I turned into this. I didn't even like looking in the mirror. I used to have to shave and wear a shirt and a tie for work. And I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror while I was shaving.
Yeah.
In fact, I used to get a bucket and shave away from the mirror because I hated the person I was. Today I shave in front of the mirror. I look at the person and I go, didn't do a bad job yesterday, mate. See if you can do it today. And that's pretty much what it comes down to in life.
As soon as you stepped into recovery, were you able to shave in the mirror, or did that take some time?
Well, you sort of have to, because at high ground you've got to shave every day.
Yeah.
So you get, and it's the norm, right? If I tried to shave away from the mirror, I would have got challenged.
Yeah.
Would have got a warning. Yeah. Would have got something
Why
else.
Why are you doing that? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was, look, you start doing stuff without knowing it. But every day I was more proud of the person I was the day before, and you get feedback from people, and because you don't really know you're changing, you can feel it, but you don't know it. You want to believe. So the peers around you will let you know whether you're not changing enough, and high ground certainly let you know if you're not changing to the level that you need to be changing. So that's what I also liked about it, right? If you weren't getting told something, you knew you were doing probably all right.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, because my after treatment, my post treatment at higher ground was jail, and it was like I couldn't have got more than 2 worlds apart from a rehab to a jail, and so it was an interesting combination for my journey. I never thought I'd say I'd be happy to go to jail. But after 18 weeks at high ground, I was ready. I was ready for something different. So as much as I wanted to go to a post-treatment facility, jail was the right place to go, because I still hadn't paid for my crimes. And I look back and I think, every action has a reaction in life. All my life I've been able to talk my way out of everything. I'd finally found a scenario where I couldn't talk my way out of it. Had to be action.
Yeah.
And I found a guy from the Narcotics Anonymous program, an old timer, who's a good friend of mine now, and he gave me some advice very early on. And he said, "Did you do the crime?" I said, "Yep." He said, "Well, do everything you can before you walk into that courtroom to prove you're not that person anymore." And he goes, "And then go and do your time." And I really liked that. So what I did was I spent 11 months in treatment, and I did everything I could. So I got a sentence indication of 8.5 years for my for my crime.
Wow.
This is prior to the changes in the laws around addiction.
Yeah.
So I copped the wrong end.
Yeah.
I was just outside of that. But to be honest, I was selling a lot of drugs and I was causing a lot of misery, and I did deserve, what I got. But that, with all the discounts and all the letters and all of the support, I had about 42 people from recovery in the courtroom. The judge actually commented that she'd never seen so many people on a weekday supporting someone being sentenced. So it was really cool. High Ground come along, Wings come along, people from the Bridge come along. It was cool. And I ended up with 3.5 years, 42 months. 42 months. 42 months jail. I was really happy with that.
Yeah.
I walked out of the courtroom to the cells. Everything was new to me. I'd never seen it and done it before. Remember rolling up to Mount Eden on a Friday night late, and the guy goes, stand in front of the camera. So I'm standing in front of the camera, and he looks around at me and he goes, "What are you smiling at?" I said, "I thought you said we're having photos." He goes, "It's not a family photo, you idiot. It's a mugshot." I said, "But I'm happy." And he goes, "What are you happy for?" And I said, "Well, I know in 3.5 years this is over. I don't have to deal with this anymore," because the judicial system really did knock me for six. I had no idea how tiring and painful and like methodical it is. It's really so. I said, and I keep the photo in my wallet of that mugshot, and I'm standing there with this big smile on my face. And he goes, "Well, we'll see if we don't wipe that off your face." Right. And the reality was, I walked out of there. I actually only spent 14 months, and I got my first parole. And I walked out of Auckland prison at Parimurimo 14 months later, and I turned to the bloke and I smiled and I said, "Still got it on my face, mate," and walked off.
Oh my gosh.
And I the reality was jail was needed because it showed me that actions are more important than words, and recovery is about action.
Yeah.
Right. We could sit here and talk till we're blue in the face, but getting out and helping people and showing how this program works is way more important. So, that I do that on a daily basis. I do that through my home group and through the stuff I do. I made some big promises when I got out, when I was in jail. If I get out early, I'll do this, I'll do that. And I've stuck to those. My grandfather used to say, the only thing in this world that's free, son, is your word. It's your choice whether you keep it or not.
Yeah.
And I've learned that I used to give my word to everyone in addiction. It meant nothing. It meant absolutely, like these days, if I give you my word, if I say, "Nicole, I'm going to be here at 10 o'clock, I will be here at 10 o'clock. Unless for some reason I've been run over, I can't, arrested or for some God-forsaken mistaken identity, who knows. But my word is my bond, So, and that's really important to me, is to hold my word, because it is free, but it's so powerful.
Oh, Mitch, you have painted a real solid picture about your time in treatment, and we've just sort of nudged our way into you being sentenced. Did you stay sober in prison? Yeah,
I made a commitment. I made a commitment that I wasn't going to do all this hard work, and then, to be fair, when I went into treatment, I was, the saying of being sick and tired, and I was sick and tired of using. I went into treatment wanting only one thing, and that was the desire to use, to be removed. And when I heard in a Narcotics Anonymous fellowship that the one thing that it promises you is the desire to use will be removed, I was like, yay, I found it. So when I got to jail, I wake up each morning and I didn't feel the need to use, and I only used that. I realised I only used to avoid the trauma and the pain of the trauma. So once that I'd accepted my part in my sister's passing and my mum's, and I didn't have that need to use anymore. It was removed. So was I offered drugs in jail? Yes. But the reality was I was a little bit older than most people in jail. I wasn't quite the same demographic. The best thing you can say in jail quickly and firmly is no.
Yeah.
So when I got offered some, I just said, no thanks, or I don't use. I remember coming the day I finished. I had to do the drug treatment program in Auckland prison, and
what was that like?
It was like doing the bridge program, to be fair. It was sort of the same. It was run by Odyssey.
Okay.
And it was pretty cool because I walked in there and the lady who was going to be my case manager asked me my name, and she said, "Can I talk to you in another room?" And I thought, this is a bit weird. And she said, "Is it true you've just recently completed higher ground?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "What, and you graduated?" And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I said, "The judge said I had to be here." And she goes, "Oh, okay." She goes, "I don't think this program's really going to be testing for you." And I said, "Yeah, but I can't get early release without finishing this program. So I'm here, and I'll do it to the best of my ability." And ironically, that it was probably one of the best times I've had up to that stage. It was, you're on a landing with 12 people in so we were called benchmark. So you had to name your landing had 12 people on it.
Oh yeah.
That was your group for the DTU. So there's 4 landings. So there's 48 people there. We were called benchmark. Out of those 12 guys, we had 9 different gangs represented, and then there was 3 of us that had no connection.
Yeah.
So it was quite humorous to see 9 gang members and 3 non-gang members, and ironically, no one had got all 12 through for about 3 years.
Wow.
We ended up being the first in 3 years to get all 12 through the program because, there's shenanigans that go on that can get you removed from the program.
Yeah. But
the thing was, we had a strong leader on our landing. He kept sort of most of them in check.
Nice.
It was pretty cool. I really enjoyed, and ironically, I ended up sponsoring 3 of those guys after we were all released from prison, and they went on to treatment at higher ground. And I sponsored a few of them. One of them still a sponsee now. And I helped them all with their safety release program, and it was an easy program for me.
Yeah.
But I was able to help support the other guys as well, which was and I had a very traumatic event while I was in there. My oldest daughter was diagnosed with an eating disorder, and she was in Starship Hospital, quite sick. And a credit to the guards, they used to let me ring every day to ring up and see how she is. But also one of the other guys on the landing, the guy that was sort of in charge of our group, I remember him coming into my cell and giving me a load of phone cards. And he said, "I heard about your daughter." He goes, "I want you to phone her every day." And in jail, you don't really want to take a gift off someone. I wasn't really in a position to pay it back. And I said, "Look, mate, I'm okay. I'm getting calls." He goes, and I said, "Look, I can't really pay you back." He goes, "Take the phone." He goes, "We're going to have a problem if you don't phone her." And that was cool. I'm friends with him now still.
Wow.
So we got out. I've seen him on the news a few times. He's quite a prominent gang member. But to me, he's just a bloke. I don't see him as that, regardless of his tattoos and his affiliation. To me, he's just a good person, support person. Never done me any, in fact, done the opposite. Never done me any wrong, done me right.
Yeah.
So I met, I'll always say I met some really good people in jail. And it sounds funny, but the one common denominator in jail is the same as rehab. Everyone's there for the same reason.
Yeah.
Right? Out in the community, you don't know who the crooks are. At least in jail.
You know.
We're all there. And then the funny thing is 95% of people don't want to be in jail and want to get out.
Yeah.
5% need to be there. So I have nothing but good memories of my time in jail.
That's awesome.
Something incredible happened when I went to jail on the Friday from higher ground. One of my close friends in higher ground went for a court appearance on the Tuesday prior, and he was supposed to just do a court appearance, and judge ended up locking him up. Anyway, on the Monday after I went to Mount Eden, I was in the RO being transferred, and he walked through the door, and he goes, "I heard you were here." He goes, "I wrote you a letter to let you know," and he had quite a history with the jail system. He'd been in and out, so he knew all the going-ons. And he goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "I think I'm going to Spring Hill." And he went and talked to somebody, and he goes, "No, mate, you're going up to Nafa with me." So a guy that I was in higher ground with he was there for 7 or 8 weeks of my 18, maybe even 10. We were in the same van up to Nafa. We were celled up together for the whole 7 months apart from one night in Nafa. he was being transferred to Parry to do the DTU because he was going back to high ground. And the night before he went, they came and said, Ingram, you're going too. So we transferred to Parry. We did the DTU together on the same landing.
Yeah.
Then we went to Unit 6 together before he went back to high ground. So a guy that I was in rehab with ended up doing nearly my whole 14 months in jail in the same unit, in the same cell. It was just incredible. And he knew all the runnings of a jail. I knew none.
Oh, my goodness.
So it was the biggest higher power moment I think I've ever had.
Yeah.
Ever. Like if that's not a guardian angel, I don't know what is. So, look, if you want to use drugs in jail, you can. It's simple as that. It's easy. I didn't. I was 44, 45. I was over it. You know, I'd been using since I was 13, so 30 plus years of using something. I was over it, you know, and nobody could say to me today, what I've learned is drugs will never make my life any better. You know, never. No matter what the situation. You know, my dad's 87. You know, he'll pass away at some stage. I'm ready for it. Using isn't part of it. It'll be, you know, deal with it. You know, I've got an amazing life outside of work and recovery, and none of it involves any type of substance. So yeah, if you want to use in jail, you can, but that wasn't for me. I had a plan. I already had a mapped out plan of what I was going to do when I got out. You know, I held down a career all my life, you know, and I wanted to go back to work, you know.
Yeah. I
had 2 children that I'd stopped paying child support for, and I made a promise to myself that I would get out of jail, and I would repay that money. And that was yet again my word. I paid every cent and some to my ex-wife for everything that I'd not paid, and I suppose that's probably why she respects me, you know, decently today. That, and you know, I've paid. You know, I'd seen guys in jail get on phones arguing with their partners, and from jail going, "I rang you last night. Where the hell were you?" And I'm thinking, mate, you're in jail. You're in jail. They've still got a life to live. I didn't want to be that person, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember my ex-wife, while I was in jail, she told me that she'd found somebody new. And I said, "Oh, that's awesome." She goes, "The girl said you'd say that." And I said, "Look, you know, you didn't do anything to ruin this marriage. I did. You've got every right to have a good life." Yeah. She goes, "I knew you'd say that." And when I got out of jail, the first week I was out, I helped her partner move into her partner's house.
Wow. And
because at the end of the day, you know, I held no animosity. In fact, I wouldn't have been, if it was flipped the other way around and she'd done to me, I don't know whether I would have been as good a person as her. So it shows that she's a good person, you know. Yeah. So, you know, I feel like I'm lucky to still have her in my life and her keeping my daughters.
Yeah. You spoke about that you had a mapped out plan post jail. Yeah. What did that look like for you? You know, did you go back into treatment? How did you integrate yourself back into the community? Because bear in mind, you were also prior to jail in like intensive treatment as well. That's crazy in one. How did that all unfold?
It started from sitting when you're released from jail, it's funny, right up until the moment you walk out the door, you're still locked in some form of cell. So they transferred me from Unit 6 up to the RO. Unit 6 at that stage was the working unit. They put you in the back of a prison van.
Yeah.
So you're locked up from there up to the receiving office. Then they put you in the holding cell at the receiving office till they call you to give you your stuff back, sign your form. And then the funniest thing was I was sort of expecting, like you see on the movies where they open the gate and they say goodbye to you.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, "Just walk that way." And I walked down this hallway and I walked down this hallway. And then I walked out and I'm in the car park. And I'm like, is no one going to say goodbye to me? I was waiting for some sort of fanfare, you know. But the funny thing was, sitting in that cell to be released right before walking out the hallway, there was 3 other guys in there, and they're all gang members. And they're all talking about what they were going to do that day.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether they asked me just to be sociable, but they said, "Oh, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm actually going back to a rehab called High Ground today to have lunch." I said, "My old mate Paul, who passed away, he picked me up. And we went to Higher Ground and had lunch. And that night I went to my men's home group at NA and So my plan was, while I was in jail, a friend of mine had taken her life, and at my graduation at Higher Ground, she challenged me to do a 90 and 90, which is 90 meetings in 90 days in whichever fellowship you choose. But at Higher Ground, they have a thing called a tamatu, and if you do 4 90 and 90s in 2 years, get a sponsor, do the steps, you get a carving. So I made a commitment to do that. I become the third person to wear a tamatu. So I did 90 meetings in 90 days, 4 times, all back to back. So I did a meeting every day for a year. About 4 months out of jail, a friend of mine who I got a job for when I lost my job, I got him the job when I lost him for being arrested. He rang me and he said, mate, I'm selling up in Auckland, I'm moving to Dunedin. He goes, but mate, this job would be perfect for you. He goes, do you reckon I should put you forward? And I said, mate, I'm on parole for another 28 months or something. And he goes, mate, you will be perfect for this job. He goes, I'll get you an interview. I said, okay, cool. And anyway, I went in for this interview. I was absolutely I had no hope of getting a job. I was resigned to the fact that this is what, I'll just play out the first year and see how I go.
Yeah.
And the job was sort of perfect for me, but I didn't know whether they'd be able to get past my Ministry of Justice report. So the first thing they asked me was, let's talk about the white elephant in the room, which is your MOJ report. You've just got out of jail. Why were you in jail? So I told them why I was in jail, and he says, well, what's going to keep you out of jail? And I said, well, this is what I do. I said, I totally understand if you tell me, see you later, I'm okay with that. I won't hold it against you. I said, but I'm more than happy to do drug testing. I was going to have to do drug testing for corrections anyway, but I volunteered. So they had random drug testing at work. When they came in, I volunteered. So I'd always say, how many people are you choosing today? And they'd go 4. I said, make it 3. I volunteer. And I'm still in that job today. 8 years, coming up 9 years. So my boss said to me, he goes, look, he'd never even met a criminal before, let alone hired one. But he said to me, he goes, you've proven that you've dispelled the fears that anyone could have ever had about hiring someone like you. I said, the reality is, the best thing is, you know all about me.
Yeah.
When you're hiring someone that you don't know about, it's a lottery. There's risk with everyone. There's, you could be hiring a drug addict without knowing. You could be hiring an alcoholic that's going to drive your company car drunk, So the reality was, I said, you know all about me. So
you were honest from the get-go.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's what my life is about. It's around honesty,
Yeah.
And integrity. So, I was grateful to get a job, and when you love going to work, you get up in the morning. I have a plan every day. I know what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah.
And you couldn't tell me that coming up now, what I'd have now. Like when I got out of jail, I had to do a non-asset procedure, virtually like a form of bankruptcy, because I owed money all around the place. And my plan was to pay it off. That was to do the honourable thing. And ironically, I went to see a financial place. You came into the bridge, actually. The lady, it was from down in Balmoral, and I rang her up, and her name was Pam. She was lovely, and I said, oh, you won't remember me, but you come into the bridge program. You said if you ever need help with your finances, come. So I went and seen her, and she goes, we'll just do a non-asset procedure. You can't run a company or be a director of a company for 3 years. I said, oh, no plans. And she goes, don't pay another cent to anybody, because you'll just be paying interest all your life. You'll never have a life, which didn't really sit well with me because I wanted to pay them back. But she goes, I took professional advice, and I, after 2 or 3 years, I started, I paid for my daughters. Both of them had braces. I paid for half of those. I went to Bali not long after I got out of jail with corrections blessing to the Narcotics Anonymous convention in Bali.
Yeah.
Went with a group of people about 5 months after getting out of jail, which was really funny because getting through immigration was just it was the funniest story. I walked up. I had all the paperwork and everything, and And the lady, I handed the passport, and you could see her just, how are you today? I said, yeah, good. Must have come up with a blazing red flashing light on the screen because she went from nice to not so nice. She picked up the phone, and next thing I'm in a room at the side being questioned on where the hell do you think you're going. So I gave them all the paperwork, and they were, have a good time, Mr. Ingram. And anyway, I trotted off. I met up with a group of people I was with. They were really worried that I wasn't going to get through. But we were sitting waiting to get on the plane, and I looked up, and there's 2 cops coming down the escalator, and they're staring straight at me.
No.
And I said to the guy beside me, I said, they're coming for me. And he goes, how do you know? And I said, they haven't taken their eyes off me from the moment they got on that escalator, mate. And anyway, sure enough, they come down. There was about 350-odd people waiting to get on this plane, and they asked if they could take me away. And I said, well, you talk to me here.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we don't want to do it here. And I said, well, I think you've ruined the feeling around anyway. So we went away and had a chat, and they said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to a convention in Bali for narcotics. And they were like, have you got your paperwork? I said, yeah, here it is here. And then they're like, is your address still 126 Beach Road, Te Atatu Peninsula? And I'm like, no, mate, I'm pleased to say I'm not. I said, I'm at this address now. And we had this most awesome conversation. And they were just like, what are you going to Bali for? I said, a convention. And they were like, how's everything going? I said, great. And they're like, really sorry about this. I said, mate, don't ever be sorry for doing your job. I said, if I hadn't done what I'd done, you wouldn't have to do what you're doing. So the reality is we're all good.
Yeah.
And I said, but you might want to go and talk to these people that are now concerned that I'm getting back on that plane. So it was and they wished me all the best. They shook my hand. They said, well done. You know,
awesome.
And the reality was I never blamed somebody. In my job, sometimes I have to do stuff I don't want to do, right?
Yeah.
But that's the nature of the beast sometimes. You don't do it, as long as you're doing it with the right intention.
Yeah.
You should never worry about doing what's right. So it was a great learning lesson for me. Yeah. And I've been overseas every year. We go to Fiji for a family holiday every year. We go on August the 1st this year again with our little one, because that's what I can do now. You know, certain countries I can't go to or without permission, but I don't blame it against any of them. You know, the reality is, yet again, my action has a consequence. You know, so you know.
How long did it take your family to, build that trust back with you?
I didn't really have any close. My dad is 87. He's got a bit of dementia. He's always believed in me, but there was an incident that came up that the police turned up on his doorstep looking for me. So he thought I'd been up to no good. Yeah. But what it was a historical thing from like an investigation that they were doing that my name happened to come up. Okay. It wasn't about me. I was actually used as a witness. He thought I'd been up to no good. So that sort of ruined the feeling of everything I'd done for a little while. But my dad's proud of me. He tells everybody about how well I'm going when he sort of remembers. But my mum, my kids, my oldest daughter's 24. She's just moved to Melbourne recently, and my 21-year-old. They're very proud of me, and my 6-year-old doesn't have a clue what's going on because she's never seen any of it. So
wow, so all girls.
All girls. Yep, 3 girls. Wonderful. I'm surrounded by girls. I do have a male dog, but I'm sure he doesn't like me either. So it's like, but yeah, no, lots of girls, and it's nice because my sister had 3 boys. Yeah, and the funny thing was she always wanted a girl. That's why she kept having kids, and I got the girl, she got the boys. So,
are you close with those boys today?
No, not so. A couple of them, I tried to be, but they have their own, with her dying so early on in their life, and me and my addiction path, we sort of got fragmented. I try to, I'd like to more, but the reality is they've got their own lives too. So one of them's got some addiction issues, and I'm I really want to support him to help him. But yet again, he's got to help himself first, and then I'll be there for him.
Totally, yeah. Talk to me a little bit about, what life looks like today for you, Mitch. What do your self-care practices look like? Do you attend, 12-step meetings still? And how do you keep your recovery under lock?
Balance.
Yeah.
Balance is big. I obviously work, full-time, but I have a group of sponsees that I look after. I'm part of men's NA, Monday night, 7:30 Point Chef. that's my home group, has been all my life. I try and get in meetings. I love meetings. I would do more, but I also had decided to have a child at 49 with my partner, and I made a commitment that because I missed out on my other daughters, raising of them, that I would make sure that she's the most important person in my life. So meetings will always be there. Her early years won't be. So I try and do as many meetings as I can within reason of not interfering with family time.
Yeah.
So Saturdays, family days, I do service. I do go into high ground. I do talk at the bridge when asked. I do phone calls regularly every day with sponsees. I had one this morning. It's cool. That sort of stuff is all about recovery, right? There's other ways of doing recovery than just meetings, right? So as much as I like going to meetings, I have to give back in other ways because I just don't have the time. So working full time, I'm in a role that I look after 5 men. So that it's a lot of really getting the balance. I talk to my sponsees all the time. Everything's about balance. So when I leave work, I don't take work home. When I go to work, I don't take family into work, So the reality is separating those, then finding time for recovery. You just got to make sure, it's sort of like a game of chess. You just move the pieces around depending on what you're doing, And I never find, in 2021, we bought a house in Te Atatu just around the corner from higher ground to live in. We set up a recovery house in 2018.
Oh, wow.
In Mount Albert.
Like a sober living sort of thing?
Sober living house.
For people exiting.
5 bedroom.
Wow.
For people in post-treatment.
Yeah.
To get them, because what we noticed was there was a dearth of facilities for people leaving post-treatment facilities to get back, because they haven't got jobs because they're in post-treatment. So we set up a house, a 5-bedroom house, and then our baby come along and we needed a 6-bedroom house.
Yeah.
So we moved to to One Tree Hill, and so we said it was going to be a short-term plan, and we bought a house in 2021. But we loved it so much that we rent our house out in Te Atatu to one of my sponsees, and we still live in the recovery house in One Tree Hill, and we have for 6 years. So we just, I don't know, our daughter's been raised around a house of she knows no different. Like our landlord loves us because no one drinks, no one drugs.
Yeah.
We pay our bills I pay the rent on time. He can't believe how good we are.
Yeah.
And he owns the house down the back, and when it got free, he goes, would you like to take that one over too? So I did think about it, but then I was like, I don't need 2 houses to look after. But I don't know. The balance of a recovery house is awesome as well. It keeps me, like, I've got one at the moment. 2 sponsees of mine are in the house in the 4 bedrooms.
Cool.
So I've helped people that have been kicked out of places and didn't know where to go at short notice. And look, could things go wrong? Of course they can. I've had a couple of people who've had to move on, but over 7 years, I think we've had about 4 or 5 people relapse, and we've got rules in place. The rules are explained to everybody, and you never hold it over on someone for relapsing, because no one plans to go out and relapse.
No.
It's just, it happens. So we try and support them. They've got 48 hours to move out, but within reason. I've let people stay an extra few days till they can find a place or for a place to come available.
Yeah.
So, there's always empathy side to it. I'll never chuck someone out on the street, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What we do is just say to them, look, just stay in your bedroom as much as you can, and because you got to protect the other people in the house as well.
Yeah.
So, but it's great. I love it. I more than my partner sometimes goes, someone in the kitchen, because we live below the kitchen. Someone in the kitchen, but it is what it is. We enjoy it. It gives us opportunities to do other things as well.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about, you were telling me earlier that you ran a detox company for a while. How did that come about?
My partner was working in a private rehab, and one of the clients was leaving, and his mum had nowhere to go, and she said, would you would you look at supporting him on a daily basis, virtually like peer support? So we set up a company called Recovery Companions.
Okay.
And there was a program in America that was very famous around a rich lister's son who had a recovery companion, because it's very big in America.
Yeah.
Sober companions, recovery companions.
Interesting.
So we actually had 3 companies. We had recovery companions, sober companions, and detox companions. So we did detoxes as well. And it was just a way of, giving people opportunities that were doing level 4 peer support. There weren't enough jobs. So this way it helped people that needed support, and we offered everything from daily support to some people needed it at night time, someone need it during the days. Everyone's different, so you put different programs together for people, and we did that for about 4 or 5 years. It was really cool. I enjoyed it, but with my job, the promotion I got in this job, I just couldn't do both. And you're dealing with people's lives, so I was like, no, that journey's enough.
Yeah.
Helped some awesome people, learnt a lot, but the time was right to just pull back a bit. So,
do you think that you'll ever get back into that?
Never say never. I do. We have helped people on the, from referrals that people have rung us and gone, because it's easy enough to do a detox in a Airbnb, and the process is the same. As long as you've got a relationship with a good doctor that understands. Yeah. And I've got a friend who's a nurse that we use as well, because there's a lot goes into it. You're dealing with someone's life.
It's massive.
Well, alcoholics are always harder to detox than narcotics. It's a very difficult, especially depending how much they're drinking, because the organs. Sometimes you've got to have the reduced drinking, and that's, there's a whole lot goes into it, and you got to do it right. So, and it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week thing. Then you've got 3 staff that you need, 3 8-hour shifts. So it's revolving those to do a night shift. There's a lot goes into it, and if someone doesn't turn up, how do you? In the end, I was like, I was burnt out. I was like, no. Nah. So I would maybe, who knows? I'm enjoying the role I'm in now so much that. If you said to me now, I don't see it happening. Yeah. But everything changes, like just for today, I'm happy. Yeah. Who knows?
Oh, incredible. What do you believe the biggest gift you've been given in your recovery is?
Just probably to accept others for who they are. I'm powerless over people, places and things. And if you delve deep into that, that's everything. I can't control Nicole. The amount of people that I've come across in my life where I'd manipulate or try and control them into getting what I want. Now I'm just happy for Nicole to be Nicole. If Nicole's happy, I'm happy. If Nicole's not happy, well, Nicole's going to have to find that out. So accepting everyone for who they are. Like the reality is, my case manager at High Ground, I said something about, he goes, what do you think of this person? I said, I don't judge. He goes, of course you can judge. Oh, that's right. He goes, there's 2 things you can judge people on, Mitch. Their words and their actions, because they're fact. And I was like, it's a really cool thing, right? Anything else he said you judge them on, that's just what you think. But words and actions are fact. He goes, don't worry about anything else. So if they're good to you, you judge them on that. If they're not so good to you, you can judge them on that. But it doesn't mean that's who that person is, because everything else comes into it around. They might be having a bad day. So I just accept people for who they are, and I just try to be a good person, because the only person I'm in control of is me. I try and do good on a daily basis. I try and help someone on a daily basis. When I get opportunities like this, it's a great opportunity to further my recovery. And maybe, generally when I go into share at facilities, I'll say, just want you people to know I'm here for me, not for you. And they look at you weird, and I go, because I'm here to strengthen my recovery. But if this helps anyone in the room, then I've achieved what I need to achieve, right? Because you're never going to get to everybody, because someone will be sitting in there in a different frame of mind than what they should be, right? So if that helps someone in that room, even better. But I'm there primarily for me. Yep. And that's what I've learned in this gig is I need to look after me. If I look after me right, it'll filter through, you know. If I'm in a good frame of mind, people at my work are happy, my daughter's happy, my partner's happy, you know, guys in my house are happy, you know, everyone's happy. So, you know, I don't project my crap onto other people. The one thing, though, that sticks out that I've learned in recovery is I can think something now and not say it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the greatest gift of all. I can be sitting somewhere just thinking, this guy's totally delusional. You know, he doesn't have a clue what he's doing. And I'll go, that was wonderful. Because I don't need to correct him on anything. You know, the reality is, and the scenario I got once, someone said to me, they said, oh, the sky's purple. And it's, you know, it's blue, right?
Yeah.
And you're thinking, it's not purple at all. And you go, you can stand and have an argument with him. And you find out he's colourblind. He thinks it's purple. If he thinks it's purple,
it's purple for
it's
him.
purple. Who cares?
Yeah.
You don't need to correct him. And
Yeah.
I don't need to correct anyone, anything. I don't have that need to be right.
Yeah.
You know, where all my life I'd argue till the cows come home that I was right and you were wrong. Until you told me, sorry, I was wrong, we'd keep arguing. And now I just couldn't care less. Because what I've learned is you've only got so much energy and capacity in your day, right? Don't waste it on crap that's not relevant.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, so many learnings, like I learn every day. You know, this whole journey of recovery has just been a learning journey. And today I'll learn something today as well, you know, and that's great. Some of the stuff I learn, I don't need it, off it goes, but there's just some great stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So you should never stop learning. So.
If I was to ask you if you had the young Mitchell, you know, sitting in front of you and you were able to have a conversation with him, what would that conversation look like today?
Oh, wow.
Before any of this took place.
I suppose the thing that comes through the most is love the people closest to you, you know, as much as you can, because you just don't know when they're gone. You know, losing my sister and losing my mum, you forget about all the good times you had with them because you really only remember the end. And just to spend more time with them, I suppose. You think they're going to be around forever, and then when they're gone, there's so much you wanted to say or so much you wanted to do. You know, I've got one photo in my room on the wall, and it's a photo of my sister. And I look at it every morning. Every morning when I get out of bed, it is right in front of me. And I look at her every morning. Because I know she'd be proud of me today, you know. She suffered badly from mental health and addiction, you know. She would love to have been clean. She just couldn't get it. So for me, it's like the young me would just probably understand her more. I didn't. Took me way too long till she passed for me to understand what she was going through. My anger, I don't want to say hate, but my anger and dislike for her ruined too much, you know, too many years. So, yeah, young Mitchell would probably be a bit more understanding. But the young Mitchell, there was a lot of good stuff there too as well. Probably the middle years, the middle Mitchell wasn't so good.
Yeah.
The young one wasn't too bad. So.
Oh, beautiful. You know, I'm just thinking as well, as this conversation just starts to wrap up and come to an end, I would like to ask you what your thoughts are about what do you believe needs to be looked at and starting to change within the communities to see a better result of, you know, substance abuse users and, you know, helping people get clean and live the life that we get to live today.
There's got to be more access to facilities, you know. There's got to be more beds. You can't have people doing part-time programs and think they're going to get well. You can't do them during the day and send them home at night. You know, they need to live in. And excuse me, those facilities, you know, they're few and far between. I think New Zealand's got a limited number of beds across 4.5-5 million people. You can be under 100 probably provided beds across the whole country. And in the addiction sector, mental health, there's a few as well, but there's just not enough. But when someone wants help, they need help straight away. The waiting lists are so long.
It can be months sometimes.
Exactly, and that person might not survive that. And it's the families that suffer. It's generally the families ringing up going, oh, my son wants help, and they'll go, oh, cool, we can get you an appointment in 3 months' time. What did the family do for 3 months? So look, there is great facilities in New Zealand, private and public. Private you can get quickly, public you have to wait. That sort of says it all, and it's like there is, so the ones that can afford it get it, the ones that can't may not make it.
Yeah.
So we need to level that playing field, and when someone needs help, they need it.
We need more balance.
I was obviously there was a lot of money thrown at the previous government into the mental health and addiction sector. I didn't see any changes. I don't know whether many other people did either. So but disappointing. I thought that was going to be really a real game changer. But I would love to see, the higher ground facilities spread New Zealand wide.
Yeah.
In all the main centres. We've got places like Tauranga that, really need it. Wellington's got limited facilities. They've got one or two good ones. They need another one. South Island needs them. You've got growing populations in Nelson, Marlborough. Everywhere where there's population, there's drug problems. There's alcohol problems in every city. You look at places like Gisborne, Bay of Plenty, Northland even more so. Real problem up north, And there's some very good facilities up there, but not enough funding. You can't expect these people to put up their houses and their livelihoods and pay for it for other people. The government's got to get them behind it.
Yeah.
So, they're taking enough money from proceeds of crime. Let's see some of it maybe going back in the right place. I don't know. But that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, no, I love it. What advice would you give anyone that is starting out their recovery today?
Oh, make a decision and don't let anything get in the way. If you want recovery, it's there. Recovery is a choice. Today I have a choice whether I want to stay clean or whether I don't. That's the same for anyone, right? All you got to do is pick up the phone. Google, amazing. You'll find help. I always say to people that used to ring our business, and I'd say, you can get free treatment in New Zealand. The only thing you have to give up is time. The first thing they say is, I don't have any time. And I go, do you work? And they go, no. And I go, oh, okay. So what time?
Yeah.
So the reality is you've just got to make a decision. Like I gave up. When I made the decision to go into treatment, I gave up. Like, I didn't want my family, my ex-wife, I didn't want my kids contacting me. I didn't want to feel that pain of losing. So I virtually just said, right, I'm committed to this for the next however long it takes. I don't even remember those days now that I was away from them, nor do they, because I've got it all back. What they say in recovery is everything you've lost, you'll get back in tenfold. And I have, So you may think, when you say to someone, take a year or two out of your life and get yourself well, the first thing people think is, I can't do it for that long. I thought higher ground was long at 128 days, 126 days. And I'm now, nearly 4,000 days clean. That 126 was nothing. But it seemed like so long.
Looking at the grand scheme of things,
Yeah. So the reality is we think the worst, but the reality is just pick up the phone just for today, make an effort, do it tomorrow, do it. And it becomes second nature. So you can get all the help you want in New Zealand for free. You just got to give up some time. And give up the old connections, as much as it hurt, I took myself away from all the people that were in my life. But I've replaced them with other people that understand and live the same life as me.
Yeah.
So every now and again I pop into a a pool tournament somewhere and say hello to the people I used to play with. And but the good thing is I know the door's there. I can leave at any time. And that's what I always have as an exit strategy, at all times. So plan. And yeah, so look, if there's anyone out there looking to get clean, pick up the phone, ring somebody. There's plenty of treatment centres.
Yeah.
There's plenty of direction. And if you really want it, go to an AA meeting, go to an NA meeting. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And you'll find support there. There's good people in all of those.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, no, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough, actually, for sitting down with me this morning and, just being so transparent about you and your journey and who you are as a person. I feel like I know you so much better now, and it's pretty incredible, Mitch. Before we wrap this up, I want to give you the floor one last time to say anything that you would like to close on, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Oh, look, first of all, thanks for having me. Anytime the message of recovery, I have a bit of a passion for it, as you might have picked up. And that's just because I've been given such a great life. Everything I've got today is thanks to recovery. I've worked for it, but I've been given that opportunity because I'm clean. So if you want a better life and you're sick and tired of the slog of the slave to alcohol or drugs or medication or anything, just give recovery a go, and trust me, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So, look, thanks for spreading the message, Nicole. Like, all of these sorts of things are vital. There's too much negativity in the world these days, and it's nice to have some positivity. So I'm glad I'm on the side of positivity these days, and I couldn't be more blessed than to wake up each morning to a loving partner and a little child, and in a world where I want to be pro-social. So thanks very much for having me.
Thank you again, Mitch.
Welcome. No one's promised tomorrow, so just enjoy today.